Curtis have done it, so let's go ahead and get this started. Alright, welcome everybody to Nexus Gaming Series, semifinals in Division C. This is between Misplaced Ults and Late Game Though. And what a fantastic series we're going to have here. Number 1 seed defending against the new challengers, Late Game Though. Joining me once again for the cast today, we have Rory. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. These teams have a pretty good history together, not only inside the league, but as friends as well. So, there's a lot of little bit of trash talking and everything in chats and all that kind of stuff. It's really, really good spirited, and I'm interested to see both of these teams bring it and try to push for that finals.
Yeah, absolutely. The Division C matchups I think we are both very familiar with. I think they've been casted the most out of everybody this year. And so it's good to see these familiar teams. Misplaced Ults, I've probably casted 4 series of theirs. It's been fun to watch them come along this season. And Late Game Though, similarly. So 2 good teams. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And I love that already on a map like Braxis Holdout, we're seeing choice picks like Arthas as the first ban. Now that was Misplaced Ults ban, and that's really directionally placed. It's a really good comfort pick for Late Game Though, especially on a map like Braxis where having a lot of clear and a lot of upfront presence is mandatory. And with a cooldown like Syndragosa potentially even coming out, those Zerg waves can gain a ton of value, and that's just not something that Misplaced Ults want to deal with today.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the map choice of Late Game Though. They won the coin toss and decided to choose Braxis Holdout, so I'm interested to see what specific strategy they have picked out. Usually teams, because of how draft heavy Braxis is, they'll have a very specific set strategy they want to execute, and Late Game Though seems to want to be able to execute it game 1 and bring that pressure on early.
Absolutely. Now I do want to just mention that with the maps that were banned, I'm not sure if you had mentioned them as of yet, but Infernal Shrines was one of the bans, and that was from Late Game Though. That map in particular has been Misplaced Ults bread and butter. They've won almost every time they've been on there. I believe their record on that map is 7-1 in the Nexus Gaming Series, so taking that comfort out of their map pool for today is definitely something that shows just how well these teams are practiced against each other.
Especially, yeah. I do have the map bans and map picks on the center overlay here. So you'll see Misplaced Ults banning out Dragonshire and Late Game Though banning out Infernal Shrines. So let's get on to the draft. Now that we've got a couple picks in, we have Dahaka for Misplaced Ults, strong solo laner, global pressure, strong hero overall. Not surprised in the slightest to see that. And then for the side of Late Game Though, we have Tassadar and Vala, that strong battery, and the ability for Tassadar to go solo lane if he has to.
Absolutely. And he is a pretty decent matchup against the Dahaka. He doesn't win the lane, but he makes that lane sustain for a long amount of time. And he definitely is really, really likely to stack up Templar's will pretty quickly on that lane as well, if Dahaka plays a little bit more aggressively, like he should be able to going against the Tassadar. But however, when you pair that with a Vala who can quickly rotate as well, you're going to have just an insane amount of sustain. And they're only a couple picks in, so we're looking at another support that's going to be on their side, as well as probably another huge damage dealer. So already a pretty handed draft for Late Game Though. However, that's a great response on the side of Misplaced Ults.
Indeed, Gul'dan and Ariel is one of those classic combinations. Changed a little bit with the Ariel changes that came out. What day was that? Monday, or those the PTR notes? Maybe it was last week that Ariel's changed.
It was
last week? Okay. Look, the heroes moves too fast for me. Oh gosh. It's just too much. But with the Ariel changes, Gul'dan still remains an incredibly powerful battery, but not the ubiquitous best battery in the game now. But still a very great combination for lane clear and for raw healing output.
Not only that, but Ariel does generate a lot of hope on her own as well now with those changes. So it allows for them to play in a way where neither of them really have to go back. Basically, if you're playing Ariel Gul'dan and you have to back on either one of those heroes, you're not doing enough to stay in the lane. You're not doing enough to challenge the kind of pressure that your opponent's putting on you. And well, we're going to see a pretty late Greymane ban. Normally at this point, Greymane's picked up on one of these sides, especially on a map like this where lane clear is so mandatory. And with that cocktail, he definitely does a pretty good job lane clearing. So I'm a little surprised to see it this late in the draft, but still a really strong pick when you're going to pair it with Gul'dan and Dahaka. Just so much engagement and so much ability to reset, especially that go for the throat if you pick it at level 10. It's just not something the late game though are wanting to deal with today.
Yeah, I think a main tank and a Greymane could actually have rounded out Misplaced Ults' draft really nicely. So it's definitely not definitely directed as just a blow up hero ban. They don't want to have Gul'dan lower their entire team and have Greymane be able to finish everything off. So good targeted ban, I believe. And I might not be familiar as much, but Misplaced Ults might have a strong Greymane player. Usually teams carry one of those.
Absolutely, they do. That is going to be Sheepfu, their team captain. He is just brutal on that Greymane. I've played against him many times, and this is Division C, generally placed in because they have a little bit lower MMR, but they don't play like this. Misplaced Ults came into this understanding, hey, they had to earn their way into those higher brackets, and I mean, they do so off of the back of Sheep's leadership and his ability to play those kinds of heroes that enable those heavy dive and heavy kills.
Indeed. A new brack was the ban for Misplaced Ults. That is a very standard ban when you're running an Ariel composition. Don't want to have your battery get cocooned, and then you lose all of your healing and all of your damage in a fight. A 2-for-1 combination for your opponent, so really solid ban there. And then late game, though, picks up the aggressive Diablo Rhaegar style. That's quite interesting.
I definitely like the Rhaegar. The Diablo's a little bit harder of a sell for me on this particular map because there are some wider spaces where his charge is not going to gain as much value. One of the big things that Diablo brings is that ability to chunk, especially after 13, getting the charge talent. You're able to chunk your opponents and then get a great amount of CC on them, and then you follow up and blow them up. So Diablo really enabling those blow-up kind of priorities, but really Vala is their only damage dealer, so they need to be able to get something in there that can assist with that amount of blow up. And now we have Malthael and Muradin off the table on Misplaced Ults side. I don't see many targets really still available for that blow up. The potential for a Li Ming, or well, we're going to see a Leoric here, so a double warrior instead.
So be interesting to see if they definitely drafted Leoric as a solo laner against Dahaka, which he should do quite well against. That leaves Diablo as the main tank down at bottom. Susceptible to being poked out by Gul'dan and Malthael, so we'll have to see how Misplaced Ults handles that and make sure they can deal the poke damage, and how late game, though, is able to react to it. But all of that will be revealed as we get into the game right on the other side of the loading break. Convenient. On the right side of the map, in the semifinals of Nexus Gaming Series Division C. This is late game, though. We've got their captain, High Curtis on Rhaegar, MC Krakazak on Diablo, Hobbs on Tassadar. Rob wins on Vala and Troth on Leoric.
Systems online.
And in the blue trunks, we're going to have Captain Sheep Fu manning it up on Mouth Vale. Murden going to be handled by Lincoln Park. DB Smiley, always the supports on Ariel. Sir Mecca, always on those mages, and that's Gul'dan. JTR rounding it out on the Dahaka.
And immediately from the start, we see a 5-man push by Misplaced Ults up into the top lane. Going to see if they can get either a gank on the solo laner or a tower down, and then probably rotate down to the 4-man in the bottom.
I like this because they have so much ability to siege with Sir Mecca on that Gul'dan. They really are going to bully Troth out of lane pretty early. And with Lincoln Park already setting up to notice the peel, they're able to get a lot of safe poke, and that's pretty early amount of damage on those early towers, and JTR is going to be able to just burrow right down to the bottom lane and not miss any soak. Yeah,
absolutely. Really good meta call there. Bottom lane generally is the 4-man lane, but there's no real reason for that on this map. There's not. Both sides are pretty much actually identically symmetrical, so being able to use that global advantage already gives Misplaced Ults just a small advantage.
Absolutely. Both teams just posturing up in the top lane. Malthael definitely enables his team to win this lane. They just need to be able to bully Rob Wins out of the lane, not allow him to get a whole lot of poke, and really allow for Sir Mecca to do some heavy damage.
Yeah, he'll want to do as much damage as possible as he's going for that corruption quest on level 1. So he'll want to land as many of those E's on as many of his heroes as possible to try and get that quest done incredibly early.
And he is already at 8, so definitely a very solid job thus far. 10, as I say that. I do want to highlight, though, Dahaka, that's JTR, has picked up enhanced agility, so looking for those quick rotations and trying to be able to get in the back line, pick somebody off. And, I mean, we see kind of the value in that already, as Leoric is fairly low on health. JTR is too, but he's still got some essences available and a well tap. So Trott's going to have to play a little bit safer as these beacons come online in just a few seconds.
So we have the first beacon phase starting up. A little bit of stalemate right now on both sides. Troth going to get taken out in the bottom lane. JTR ending up victorious on the side of Misplaced Ults, and wow, look at that Malthael Gul'dan damage. Lots of DOT damage. Really going to stress High Curtis's healing.
Absolutely. Now, HotS does have a few heroes on his team that are going to benefit from those shields, getting that auto attack healing going, but with Robwin solo on HP and kind of split off from the rest of the team, they need to be safe. Sir Mecca is being forced to be backing as well, and Robwin's going to full B, and they're going to be able to secure the top beacon, but not before Trott's able to regain the bottom beacon as well, at least up to about midway point.
Yeah, that Leoric trade actually completely negates the longest part of early death timers, being the walk back. So that really helped out late game, though, to be able to pick up that beacon and stop Misplaced Ults from stacking that Zerg wave too heavy.
Absolutely, and I like this play from JTR. He's waiting for the grasp to go out, or the hand from Leoric, and then he's using his burrow and then just getting rid of it and then staying in the lane to stack those essences back up, because he knows that this early fight against Troth is not going to be where he wins it. He wants to get those essences up. He wants to be able to stack it and get that that late game kind of, well, puns here, late game push against Troth.
Yeah, that's exactly what he's looking to do. Looking up in the top lane, and the sustain of DB Smiley and Misplaced Ults is just so strong with that Ariel. Gul'dan Ariel in a 4-man is just crazy, crazy good. Gul'dan already dealt nearly 20,000 damage.
Absolutely, and especially with the peel from Lincoln Park, he's going to be able to capitalize on a lot of those stuns, and as we're saying, that JTR is going to win yet another battle against Troth in the bot lane, and both beacons are picked up. But those peels and the stun combination from DB Smiley and Lincoln Park, as well as that fear that's going to come out from Sir Mecca in the pretty late game, that is going to be so hard for Diablo to really allow for Rob Wins and High Curtis to do anything and get up where they're able to actually benefit in that team fight.
Yep. Find it. Oh, here comes a dive onto Sir Mecca, but Krakazak not able to get the flip till later. It does isolate out Lincoln Park from the rest of his team, but he'll jump out with about 250 health, tap up, and be good to go. But it does force Misplaced Ults off the beacon, if not for just a moment.
And 94% has been taken up by Misplaced Ults on that beacon progress. So even if they lose the rest of this beacon, both lanes are still going to be pushed. And I got to give the early lane push, or the early game push, to Misplaced Ults. They have a better comp for it. Even though Malfail's not great at sieging, he still is able to peel and bully people away so that their ability to defend the siege is not going to be too effective.
That Tassadar shield absolutely just saved High Curtis's life from DOT. That was impressive. Came in with
I like that.
less than half a second left on the DOT tick, and High Curtis was running out with 11 health. So, great save there.
And the battle of the tanks in the bottom lane continues. JTR forced it back as well, but Troth doesn't have that global ability that the Haka does, and he's going to burrow right back in and be met against about a third HP Troth. And the Grasp's going to land, but JTR are definitely going to win this fight, and that's not somewhere you want to be. And Rhaegar up in the top lane is going to be bullied as well. Linkin Park securing the kill onto High Curtis. And now we've got, finally, the first Zerg wave at 5 minutes and 49 seconds into the game. Both teams level 7, and this is going to get a ton of value top lane because those towers are already hurt.
Yep. Here comes Zerg Wave as Gul'dan at 6 minutes, finishes that Corruption quest. Fantastic time. Love seeing it done before level 10, around the 5 minute mark, 5-6 minute mark in a 4-man group. That's really, really powerful. All of that's going to enable top fort to be taken out for Misplaced Ults. They're going to be up level 9 to level 8 in just a moment and be well on their way to picking up their ults first.
Absolutely. And just a quick shout out to Laldo DeSotis in the chat. I promise we will not call you Lola. That's something that I had to be very sure of, that we promised him.
Indeed, I looked at it for the very first time in the at the beginning of cast and went, it's lol. And once Roy said, I was like, makes a lot of sense. High Curtis actually in a really bad spot. Linkin Park takes a nice Stormbolt, followed up by a whip by DB Smiley, but not able to finish off High Curtis there.
I like the aggression early game. That's such a great amount of value up in the top lane. That wall almost diminished. Ammo's already pushing it. That's going to be a lot of pressure there in the top lane as we see a potential Firebats invade here, but we've got a 5v4. 10s are online for Misplaced Ults, so this is definitely a fight they can take. And that's going to be Trout sniffing it out with the grasp, and that's going to be ultimately, I think, him going down. If never mind, he's able to back away just enough, but Hobbs is in a ton of danger. A little bit of pathing issue, and ATR is on that quick flank. Great tongue, and that's going to be another kill onto Hobbs.
Yeah, there's the level 10 pickup that Misplaced Ults was looking for. Allows them to invade this Hellback camp. They did pick up Tormented Souls, Avatar, Aegis, Horrify, and Isolation, not Adaptation here. So, interesting combination of ults here. Pretty standard, and interesting pick on Isolation as a gank goes down onto Diablo and absolutely eliminates him.
Well, there you go. There's the Isolation. Came in, put that little circling hat on top of Diablo, and he just got obliterated at that point.
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of Diablo left. It looks like it was some kind of Act 4 farming route going down. So.
I love the puns.
Shout out to all you Diablo players here.
We do have the splits happening once again for the side of late game, though, and they're just trying to get 10s at this point. A lot of sieging going to be done from Misplaced Ults as they still have this advantage. They do have a lot of their ults still available, including Tormented Souls, which is definitely their big damage dealer at this point, and they need to be able to push some sort of advantage for 10s hit, but it looks like they're content just backing off before those beacons spawn back up.
Yeah, indeed. I'm going to be interested to see if DB Smiley does some hat juggling. I've seen some good Ariel play with 2 batteries, where Malfail's Tormented Souls actually does more damage than almost every other battery in the game, and you can gain multiple health bars, so I'll be interested to see that. He just goes out onto Termaka, saves his life from an Apocalypse. Great 3-man Horrify. See if Sheikfu goes in with that Tormented Souls. There it pops. Krakazak getting low along with Rob wins. They both get taken out. 2 players killed. 4 Misplaced Ults, and they'll go up 4-2 in this bottom fight and be able to take the beacon.
And even better than that, they're on the brink of 13s, and this early in the game, sub 10 minutes, if you're able to get 13 advantage over a team that just barely got their ults, and they lose that first team fight where ults are a factor, it's such a huge boost to your morale more than anything. I mean, obviously it's going to be lane pressure. It's going to be, strategic advantage in terms of the buildings that are available to defend with. But ultimately, it's such a high morale boost. And I love that we're seeing that kind of aggressive play out of Misplaced Ults. They're definitely showing that little bit of a player break that they took, having that #1 seed did not affect them very hard.
Yeah. The the seed 1 actually gave them a week off, so they haven't had a full competitive match in 2 weeks compared to late game, though, who did play last week and win.
Absolutely. Now, I do want to just highlight real quick, as HotS gets almost obliterated,
wow,
that we're seeing a full arrow build out of Vala instead of more multi-shot and clear-based build at this point.
Yeah, I found that interesting. As Leort goes down yet again to JTR. JTR is putting in work in that top lane.
Listen, man, just put HotS in the top lane. You don't have an auto-attack built Vala. You're not going to gain as much value. Let Leort come down and hit that Entomb Apocalypse combo. JTR is coming in on that flank, and that is going to be HotS just sanctioned way out of his team, and a great Tormented Souls. High Curtis and Krakazak going to be the next targets, and I think this is going to be a kill onto Krakazak. Diablo is just not survivable enough without those souls fully stacked, and that is going to be that kill, and a full Zerg wave as well, going over, once again, to Misplaced Ults.
Wow. Now with a 3-level lead, which guarantees a talent tier lead, on a open keep wall, this is going to be a very tough defense for late game, though, but this is their chance. They're going to have a couple ult cooldowns up, but 3-1 over Misplaced Ults, so we'll see if they can make this happen. It's going to be their time to shine.
With Apocalypse and Ancestral both down, I don't see a huge defense coming in, and a great drag on the Troth as well is going to force him to have to Wraith walk away. They do have a couple of charges of Rain of Vengeance, and they have Archon as well. I think they can maybe get an Entomb with a couple of Rains down, but ultimately that's really their only play, as that keep is going to fall, and we have Misplaced Ults backing away and posturing to potentially steal some camps here as the final Zerg is eliminated.
Wow, Misplaced Ults just playing so solidly right now. Able to get exactly what they wanted in the keep, and then backing out. Didn't take any damage, didn't get trapped by an Entomb Rain. I was really hoping for that kind of combination. But overall, just playing their advantage properly, and through that whole time, that was only 4 Misplaced Ults players in the bottom lane. The 5th one, Dahaka, JTR was just chilling in the top lane and continuing to build their advantage from 2.5 levels to 3. So, absolutely crazy amounts of value being gained right now by Misplaced Ults.
Late game, though, needs to do one thing and one thing only. They need to get 13 and then force a fight. 16s will be a little bit later if Misplaced Ults aren't able to get a pick right now. I'm going to hold my breath on that one. But if late game, though, is able to get a pick pretty early and get 13s and force that fight pre-16, that's where they have a chance to come back in this. It's where Diablo hits a good power spike to make a lot of that high health pools in Linkin Park and JTR a little bit harder to deal with. That's where Leort's going to hit his power spike, and that's where we have Tassadar and Rhaegar and Vala a little bit more survivable as well. And a good flip ball from Sir Makas, but wow, great fear.
That horrify. Here comes the counter engage Apocalypse, though. Does stop Termaka from dealing damage for a little while. Lots of Misplaced Ults getting low. This good timing fight. However, Diablo does go down. MC Krakazak cannot take that. Troth goes down as well. The front line is down, and late game, though, just could not push through that scaling disadvantage and confirm any of the kills, even though a lot of Misplaced Ults got low.
Yeah, again, Entomb just not being used, and that is kind of the draft that they went for, is you need to hit an Entomb with at least 2 or 3 targets with an Apocalypse to follow. Aegis will save 1, but that's blowing up another target there, and that's where you need to have the engagements happen. And a boss is going to be picked up for Misplaced Ults, going to push the top lane and potentially have that next keep down, as we've got both beacons spawning and being picked up by Misplaced Ults.
This is nasty. The boss ends up walking into the top lane because the bottom lane keep is down, and like an Immortal, it'll push along the strongest lane. But that strongest lane happens to coincide with the next Zerg lane. So if Misplaced Ults ends up taking this beacon as well, this could just be absolutely devastating to have to defend a boss and a full Zerg wave.
Well, I mean, the bright side right here is Rob went the monster killer or monster hunter build, so he's got the full Q build to be able to at least chunk that boss down, and that's going to have it dead before it's able to kill the keep. That's the highlight here. That's the good thing that they came out of this particular build. But that Zerg wave is going to do so much damage. Late game, though, is not really going to be allowed at this point with the lack of map control to be able to get in and contest those beacons, and it's really showing here. I think at this point they just need to accept that, well, Troth is going to die, but also that they need to be able to defend not only a big team fight, but they need to give this keep away and just get a few kills here before they're able to do anything else. And here we go, right into the action.
Zerg wave might not even matter, as the call is to take a team fight, go for core up to level 16 and 3 levels. Misplaced ults going in. Shifu ends up getting taken out. First kill of the game there for late game, though, is going to force a full retreat, but the core at 30% will not survive this gigantic Zerg wave. So that will very assuredly be game one, going over to Misplaced Ults.
Absolutely, and that was just such a great map control game for them. They did great rotations. They always had JTR in a position to be able to come up and when they really needed to have a pick. And ultimately, he was able to win out against a Leoric, just saving his cooldowns, making sure that he was in a good position in terms of his own positioning, that is, and allowing himself to take a little bit of that damage in order to give it back when it mattered most. So I think really that particular map was a battle of Troth versus JTR, and JTR just got the better of it at this point.
Yeah. When you, as a draft, if you lose both the 4-man and the solo lane, you're going to have a really tough time. But game 2 will be on Towers of Doom. So we'll go ahead and get that started in just a moment. We'll be right back.
played out pretty much primarily by JTR. He was always in a good position to come in for a flank onto Haka, and then he also won the 1v1 battle against a Leoric in the bot lane, just utilizing his cooldowns appropriately to really win that fight. And I think a lot of it comes down to just the fact that he was able to hold that lane, and no one really ever rotated to punish him for it either. So they ended up losing the 4-man in the top lane, and ultimately they just kind of turtled from there and kept losing the Zerg waves and kept losing them until finally it was just a core call and the Zerg wave got the better of it.
Yeah, that was a tragic and slow downfall. A lot of times your 4-1 is so ingrained into Braxis holdout. That's the map, you 4-1, 4-1. But if it's not working on either side and you're getting beat on both sides, sometimes you do have to try and switch it up. Maybe take a player down from the 4-man group and rotate him down, and then you'll be able to win at least one of the lanes, and that's an important part. And there is a pure respect ban right there. JTR onto Haka.
Absolutely, I like that. You know, I do want to just highlight, though, late game, though, had some really solid combinations out of what was available in their setup. They had some really good follow-ups off of the Diablo flips into Reign of Vengeance. Unfortunately, at the point that they had those available to them and in their disposal, they just had so much of a disadvantage in terms of level scaling that they weren't able to secure any kills to allow for any sort of comeback. So good job to them to kind of pick it up in the later portion of the game. Unfortunately, they just got a little bit too far behind pre-10.
Yeah, that's one of the troubles of hyper carry style compositions, is that if you fall behind by a decent margin, more than 2 levels or so, you end up just not being able to finish any kills off. Your damage isn't high enough to get through the increased health pool and the increased healing amounts of the other team. So we'll have
Especially a hero that scales like Ariel does.
Oh, that's crazy. Stukov picked up for Misplaced Ults. Late game, though, banned Stukov out last game, so it's going to be interesting to see how good DB Smiley is on that Stukov. And then on the side of late game, though, they pick up a very classic combination of Anubarak and Li Ming.
I like the Stukov pick. DB Smiley is a stellar Stukov player. He understands the strengths of that hero, and the heavy strengths of that hero is a good amount of decent burst healing, and not really as much as far as sustain. So I wouldn't be surprised to see reuptake picked at level 4, but he understands how to position and how to put the enemy team in a place where they don't want to walk through his lurking arm because they'll be choked off. And so he's going to be able to section portions of the team out and essentially give his team, 3v5s, 4v5s, and allow for them to kind of play off of the back of that.
Yep. I love the Greymane Tyrael pickup. I think we were talking just before the cast. If we were playing on the same team, we would be Greymane Tyrael a lot. Greymane and Tyrael has so much synergy together.
Yeah, that sanctification as well with a Stukov allows for just an insane amount of pressure on one particular portion of the map. And that is, as soon as they take the engagements and Greymane goes in, you're allowed to silence people on top of Greymane, sanctification on top of him as well, and you're securing a kill there almost every time. As long as you're able to do that long enough to really have no sort of turnaround, you're going to be able to get 1-2 kills every time.
Yeah, absolutely. Gul'dan banned out, so late game, though, did not want to play against anything that resembles last game's composition, and I can definitely agree with that. That was a rough one.
Absolutely, and Uthbuck in the chat, Uthbuck77, I agree with you, man. Time for a comeback from late game, though. No puns intended.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'm a biased person because I love this combination, but I would love to see Zul. It's not his best map, but the reworked Zul is pretty good in team fights. Deals with more frontline heavy style compositions fairly well. Brings a lot of lane pressure, and combines really well with Li Ming and Anubarak. I would like to see that. I would pick that because we have a great Zul player. But we'll see if late game, though, chooses to do that.
Now, I have another pick that I would prefer to see over that pick for late game, though. But I want to ask you a question in that particular respect before we get to actually the Tehran pickup here in a second.
That's
If you were to go with that, would you go with that skeletal build with the mages as well at level 10? Or would you go with that team fight heavy Poison Nova and trying to get as much percentage-based damage as possible?
Depends on the next two pickups here. I think against a dive-heavy comp with not the best sustain, like one healer, big dive on top of you comp, you go Poison Nova and some kind of just counter-engage comp with Curse Strikes, Poison Nova, and whittle the enemy team down. Whereas if you're more on the aggressive side of things, the other team will play a little farther back. You'll want to go with more Bone Prison Skeletons with Skeletal Mastery.
Okay, that makes sense. Now we have a Tyrande pickup who is so good at stalling out these altars, and it really allows for them to rotate a little bit safer and play a little bit further back. And I like that style of play. The only problem is Li Ming's their only damage at this point, so they need a hyper carry at this point. Malthael's still on the table, who I think would be great against the Diablo Tyrael comp. But I think that they really need to prioritize some sort of a hyper carry, even more so than Ming. Vala's still on the table as well, so you got to pick something that's going to be, able to be a little bit safer, but also can potentially be another target to take some of the heat off of Tyrande or Rhaegar. So I'm thinking more of a melee at this point.
Yeah, I think some kind of bulky bruiser will help finish out this composition as well, because Anub'arak is a flimsy tank. Anub'arak has less health than a Tychus. Now he does have the inbuilt armor. There we go. Johanna works there.
Yep, there's the peel tank.
There you go. Quick mention on the Kel'Thas Diablo. Diablo will be able... between Diablo, Tyrael, and Greymane, there is a lot of mobility and a lot of control that Misplaced Ults can bring in, and then Kel'Thas will be able to follow up with any kind of stuns and do that burst damage with Greymane. So very, very powerful comp out of Misplaced Ults. We'll have to see how late game, though, can deal with it. And a Johanna pick was a very solid pick. So, all that being said, we'll see how it actually rolls out in just a moment. Stay with us. Alrighty, prepare yourself, everybody, because this is late game, though. Their tournament life on the line. They need to win the next two games to move on to the NGS Div C finals. This is the right red team. We have High Curtis on Rhaegar, Rob Wins on Li Ming, Troth on Johanna, Hobbs on the very critical Tyrande, and MC Krakazak on Anub'arak.
And in the blue trunks, we have Misplaced Ults, Captain Chifu on his patented Greymane. Tyrael is going to be handled by Linkin Park, definitely a very strong hero for him. DB Smiley on his Stukov, which is probably one of his favorite heroes at this point. Sermaka, again on the mages, and that's KT, who is a very high-impact hero for him. And then JTR coming in on the Diablo.
All right, well, nothing sneaky this game. Five heroes meet 5 heroes in the middle lane there, and immediately lane gets blown up for late game, though, so they'll be able to push that out and enable their first rotation.
Now, I want to just say, a Tyrande pickup into a combination of Anub'arak, and you've got Johanna, you're going to have a Slows from Rhaegar, you're going to have a lot of CC. Lunar Flare build is generally what you want to go, but we're seeing a Ranger build. That is going to be a full Owl build potentially coming out for Hobbs, and I know that this is going to be mostly about getting those interrupts on the shrines and then taking those disadvantageous fights where you're down a member or something for Misplaced Ults. But I gotta say, I'm not a fan. I love the Ranger build. It's so much fun in quick match and stuff, being able to snipe people across the map, especially against an Abathur. But here, I don't think this is the map for it. Not for this, where you're down 1 in the series. Take it on map 3. Get it on map 3 where you're not as much at risk.
You know what? I'll throw in the opposite their whole point right now is to blow up one target. As you see, HotS and HotS standing here in the bottom lane, ready to get that kill on Sheep Fu as a flare misses. With the combination of a follow-up flare and then and a D, the Owl hits like an absolute bus. It does like half of a squishy's damage or health bar when stacked up completely, and it's become more of the standard pickup lately. So I definitely see the value in it, and I'm excited to see now that it has been picked what HotS will do with it.
You know, I do like that if in certain games, if you're able to get it stacked up high enough, which he's doing a great job of stacking so far, you're able to do a lot to kind of bully out and allow for some of those early HP advantages. But he's going to have to be really on point with getting that stacked up as quickly as possible. It stacks up to 80 for anybody who's unfortunate enough not to have seen that. And at that point, across the map, you're dealing almost 1,700 damage an Owl, so it definitely does a lot. We're just looking to see how effective it's going to be in the late game. And so far, it's decent, you know, amount of work. Not HotS as a solo, but a decent amount of work overall, as we've got a slight core health advantage over in favor of late game, though.
Yeah, late game, though, ended up sending 3 heroes down to the bottom lane to contest that bottom shrine, or bottom altar. And Misplaced Ults only had Sheep Fu in position as Diablo is rotating down just a little bit later. So that ended up bringing the advantage to late game, though, for that fight, but XP remains just ever so slightly in the favor of Misplaced Ults.
So, and I do want to just highlight, Stu Cup did go one good spread at level 4 instead of the bigger spree uptake. So just wanting to get a lot more out of the actual Q itself instead of his proc. And so I think at that point you're relying a little bit more on Tyrael to be able to get those shields out and get a little bit more of that pseudo support going, and just relying more on getting those picks as well, which is definitely not a bad choice when you've got the likes of Greymane and Kalthas on your team. So I'm interested to see how they try to coordinate their cooldowns.
So here comes the next altar spawning at the very bottom of the map. Both teams will have level 7 by the time this altar is availably captured. So it should look like a full 5v5 fight as everybody backs and heals up beforehand. The only danger is Troth coming in just a little bit behind.
Yeah, and he's going to clear that mid lane as well, so he's going to be even further behind as the altar's spawning in just a few seconds. So he's going to finally come rotating down, and this is the potential for something bad at this point. He's a little bit out, and a good little flare onto JTR is going to force him to back away. And this is where Troth comes in and starts to get some of that pressure. Condemn's not going to hit anybody, but the blind will. And Linkin Park just doing his best as he can to bully HotS out of the way and not allow for that CC train to come in. DB Smiley's going to get charged in on as well. Lunar Flare misses, but Troth is taking a ton of damage. DB Smiley forced to back away as well, and Troth's going to get flipped. Pops is unstoppable and ultimately going to be able to back away. I think this is just going to be a stalemate at this point. Rob wins, though, in the back, taking a ton of damage, and he's going to get collapsed upon. Not enough to be able to secure the kill, but that allows for Troth to take the brunt of the rest of that damage. Linkin Park's going to be able to queue out, and ultimately, we're going to have a 2-for-0 going over, as well as the altar in that bot lane. And that's going to be Misplaced Ults winning their first team fight.
Oh, that was so close. Late game, though, was this close to having several kills, one on to Linkin Park and one on to who got chunked early. I think that was JTR or Sheep Fu got chunked out of the fight really early, but just wasn't quite able to finish up. HotS jumps in, nibbles the ankles a little bit, but ultimately that ended up being a 1v4 and ended very poorly for him.
And just not where you want to be as a wolf, you know, in the midst of everybody else.
No, absolutely. So we see just slightly better team fight mechanics coming out for Misplaced Ults, but I liked late game those fight last time. It didn't quite come out on top, but it showed a lot more life than what happened last game. So I think they absolutely have the ability to take the fight, get the blow up they need once they power scale a little bit harder, and then be able to make something happen.
Absolutely. I'm interested to see how these fights are going to play out post 10s, and this is definitely where we're going to see a lot more capability coming out of late game, though. It's definitely where they're going to thrive. That Ancestral coming out is going to be so much to deal with the amount of blow up. But that being said, HotS is going to get flipped, put in the bushes, and well, this is an adult stream, but it's not going to be pretty, and I'm not going to describe what happened in that bush.
Yeah, although Dahaka's not here, the dark bush does prevail for Misplaced Ults, so the spirit of Dahaka does live on. To collapse into the middle. Judgment onto Robwins, gets the kill. Surprise, this is a Judgment game.
That is a no-respect pick. Lincoln Park understands that his team is on the upper hand here. That was an insane Judgment over the wall as well.
That's brutal to take. That, I didn't check in time if it was just snap picked at this point. We're not sure though. HotS takes a ton of damage. He'll be going down. No, good Ancestral by HotCurtis. This turns into a 4v3 in the advantage of late game, though, and they end up with the Cocoon on Tyrael. JTR gets really low. Lincoln Park getting low. There's a kill for Robwins, and all of a sudden, a great Ancestral by HotCurtis onto HotS ends up turning that entire fight and securing the altar for late game, though.
Yeah, that Starfall did a crazy amount of damage, as well as just slowing everybody down, and it allowed for Li Ming to really pour the damage on. And I mean, that's I gotta say, Lincoln Park had a great Judgment play there, but a Sanctification would have saved that fight.
Indeed, and although he did get his one kill, it ended up basically sacrificing 3 kills in that fight. Ooh, there goes the combination out onto JTR. The whole stun train getting stronger and stronger as heroes get talents, and JTR gets taken out. And late game, though, takes their first XP advantage, I believe, of this series.
Yep, and I like the restraint from Misplaced Ults, knowing that Diablo was going to die. They weren't really concerned about it. It is Diablo. He's going to be able to come back. He's going to have just as much health as last time. Not all of his souls being taken out. So he's... you know, they understood he was going to die. They didn't go and risk potentially another person dying just to be able to save him. So I like the restraint.
Yep, indeed. Kel'Thas, Jermaka about to finish up that Convection quest despite the picks by late game, though. He's been quite safe and has stacked it up to 18, so just 2 more hits to go. And he'll have that bonus 200 damage.
And we got a bit of a party bush as well, but Shifu's going to sniff it out. HotCurtis and HotS just forced to back away, and
great play.
I'm a little upset that Surmaka didn't check that for Sheep instead, because that would have been a good quest completion. Yep,
would have been, but nonetheless a good cocktail, and either way you see it, that is not a dead Kel'Thas and Greymane, and that's the result that late game knows working for.
Now, I do like the go for the throat pick here. You're not going to have a great target as far as Curse Bullet goes. You know, Anubrax's the only real solid target there. Johanna can shield herself through a ton of that damage just with her trait. So it's really a solid game for go for the throat, trying to get it out before the Ancestral hits. And I like that both of these teams are kind of posturing to play against each other in terms of just how they're going to counter pick each other with the ults.
Alright, here comes a big combination. JTR dives in and drops a huge Apocalypse. However, Troth is going to jump on top of Kel'Thas, takes him out before Convection finishes. Misplaced Ults taking a ton of damage. Tyrael ends up death rattling in, but that did not matter. HotCurtis lives, and 4 more kills over to the side of late game, though, gives them an altar and a 1-level lead.
And again, Sanctification would have been their saving grace there. That was just too much damage to deal with. That burst that came out of the combo from Tyrande and Ming. And then everybody just kind of standing in the Starfall, not really scared of the damage that it deals, but it does do quite a bit of damage. I mean, I believe it's like 140 per tick right now.
Yeah, it's 158 damage a second, 4-6 seconds. That totals well over 1,000 damage, or right at 1,000 damage. So...
yeah, and that's not something that you can really stand in when you got a Stukov on your team. He's going to be able to burst heal you pretty late, but if you've got a tank taking a bunch of damage as well from the front line, that's going to be nasty. But there is a great blow up onto HotCurtis, and a good Judgment in as well is going to secure a little bit of damage more done on the Robwins. And here we go, Greymane's coming in. He's got that go for the throat used. And now Lincoln Park going for that final kill. It is going to be able to be secured as Krakazak in the back as well. And he gets flipped and thrown to his doom. Just such a great turnaround, and that collapse from Misplaced Ults really showing, hey, just because you won a team fight doesn't mean we were out of this.
No, absolutely. Great tenacity. Punished just a little bit too long of late game, though, sticking around, trying to get that bottom fort that lived with just over 1,000 health. They were trying to get that keep, but it ultimately cost them 3 lives. I know that feel.
I love these games where you have just a real good, strong showing of fortitude, that mental fortitude that comes in when you know, hey, we're on a little bit of a back foot, but we're going to go ahead and shape up now. And it's becoming a war of attrition here as both teams are just trying to duke it out as best they can. And ultimately, we've got a little bit of an advantage going over to late game, though, as they've got the 16s. Troth's going to sniff out that got a boss take by Misplaced Ults, but I think it's going to be a little bit too late for any sort of rotation. And this is the 5th altar phase. We've got 3 altars spawning, and this is the last time of 3 will spawn. The cores are at even health at this point, so a good amount of trade, and 16s will be hit as well from Misplaced Ults just in time for these fights to happen.
Yep, MC Krakazak coming down, trying to finish off that bottom altar, but he doesn't end up finishing it. Here comes the aggressive invade by Misplaced Ults as they try and channel the altar on the side of late game, though. However, Leeming has hit the orb power spike, so the defense should be quite strong. First 2 altars taken. Here comes a judgment on the Robwins. Not quite the holy ground needed. However, Hobbs in a lot of trouble. High Curtis out of range for the Ancestral. Yes, out of range and was not able to finish it off. Nubrat goes down as well. Troth and High Curtis on the wrong side of their base now. Going to be in a lot of trouble, but are able to escape, but it will cost them the altar. So now Misplaced Ults. Small health lead. Same talent tier. This is getting close.
Yeah, this is definitely a better showing from late game, though, in this particular matchup. I want to just give another shout-out to Smoothbuck77. You were right. No matter what happens, we're seeing a better late game team, and that is, that is definitely something I wanted to see in this particular matchup. I want to highlight, though, that Holy Ground did all of the work in that. I mean, it basically did the work of sanctification, forcing people to be in bad positions. It didn't, save anybody's health, but it definitely allowed for a lot of return damage to be done as soon as Hobbs's combination went out. It was just not enough to be able to deal with. And Hobbs is up to 32 stacks at this point of that Ranger, so it's going to chunk everybody.
Absolutely. That Holy Ground was so important because JTR was able to pick off Hobbs. Hobbs got stuck on the wrong side of the Holy Ground, and JTR was like, I'll take this. Flipped him over into his team and blew him up.
Yep. And that was despite Cocoon going down as well, so definitely a lot of good target control as well.
Alright, well, bottom siege camps, the sapper camps being picked up for both teams. As the keeps return to their normal 3-3 arrangement, with teams to have 4 shots available on core. Here comes the collapse into the middle lane. Has late game, though, stayed too deep. Here comes a huge Apocalypse and the Flailing Swipe to keep them trapped in their base. Rob wins in a lot of trouble. Hobbs takes an Ancestral. High Curtis in trouble. Where can late game, though, go?
No, this is definitely a little bit too ballsy of a play at this point. They're going to go and get 3 kills, and with both altars up, Troth is going to back away and attempt to steal one of these. Lincoln Park sniffs it out, though, and he should have just ran to the bottom one. It's just not going to be enough, and even though that middle altar was taken, or the middle bell tower was taken, this is going to be both altars going over to the side of Misplaced Ults, and High Curtis getting caught out. It's going to get collapsed upon as well, and a B-step coming in from DB Smiley is going to just put salt right in that wound.
A support to support there. Know how that feels. That's a rough one. So both altars for the side of Misplaced Ults, they're going to try and get a little bit more value out of this. Take the bottom bell tower to make this a 4-shot altar. Put late game, though, at 9 health instead of 10. Could matter. Could matter later on. Can't tell you how many games I've had where if the team just waited to capture 1, we would have lethal, but instead we don't. It's happened a lot. Thank you, here.
And the Rangers can come in and not interrupt in time too. So, but you see that chunk damage on Lincoln Park. That was he was at full health, and it took off about a fifth of his health. That's gonna be 37 stacks for that Ranger. It's gonna really start hitting hard now.
Yeah, we'll have to see. 20's picked up now, so Misplaced Ults feeling quite powerful. However, late game though, despite the recent deaths and being behind in kills, they will pick up their 20's very shortly after with the inclusion of this bell tower. There we go. So, finish that up. We'll have full talent fights from here on out.
I love this. We're seeing the rewind out of Anubrak, which is pretty standard, but we're seeing the enhanced Celestial Wrath. That's the Starfall upgrade, where everybody's got that that vulnerability if you're inside. And with the amount of value they've gotten out of Starfall, this is going to be huge. It's going to be so impactful. And with that Storm Shield as well coming out from Rhaegar, they're going to have to be inside of that Starfall for quite some time in order to be able to secure a kill. So Misplaced Ults needs to be able to bait out some of these ults pretty early and then turn around and refight. That's one of the Stukov traits here, is being able to re-engage after a fight's already been taken.
I want to point out, I think the most interesting 20 taken, Angel of Justice, to reduce the cooldown of Judgment to 30 seconds. 30-second judgments. You can get several of those off in a fight. High Curtis in a lot of trouble. Could get judgmented. No, here comes the counter collapse. By late game, though, Starfall doing an insane amount of damage. And Convection once again reset for Turmaka.
That was just crazy amount of damage that was able to be done. And DB Smiley's going to die as well. And that's a little bit of a staggered death timer. That's 20 seconds difference. And with an altar spawning, they're just going to have to succeed this one and potentially even sneak a boss here. I wouldn't be surprised if they did so. You know, these Division C teams have some balls on them.
Absolutely.
It looks like that's going to be the call.
They've got Greymane and they've got Holy Ground. There's not a lot more you need other than maybe a support against this boss. This boss hurts. Doesn't have a lot of health, though, but he hurts.
Yeah, and Troth's in a good position to sniff this out, but it's not going to be done anywhere nearly in time. But this is definitely a good call. With 2 dead, that could have been a heck of a lot worse. Getting additional 4 shots would have been detrimental. And already we see the bottom Sappers is going to get 1 additional shot potentially on that core for late game, though. And it is going to happen.
There it goes. So now we have a 15-5 health scenario. Looks like as long as late game, though, keeps that map kind of momentum going. There is a certain momentum to taking this map if you constantly keep bell tower pressure. They shouldn't be able to die in 1 shot, but 2 is their lethal point right now, whereas Misplaced Ults does have a little bit more leniency right now to their play.
Absolutely, and I just want to highlight one thing here. Another great point of Stukov on this particular map is the Sappers themselves. If you put down your lurking arm where the Sappers are trying to rush in, they do not actually explode on the tower. And you may potentially see it as both teams are posturing up in the top lane. Starfall getting such value in that vulnerability, but Cocoon's going to come down to kind of limit the amount of damage that they're able to do to return. And this point here, we've got a huge collapse and a judgment onto Hobbs as well. Droth's taking a ton of damage as well. Essentially going to land on the Hobbs, but High Curtis is in way out of position to be able to heal Droth any further. And this could be indestructible popping, but it's not.
No, Storm Shield
was not taken.
No, he decided to go for the double Storm Shield, try and make that team fight a little bit better. Hobbs goes down. High Curtis will go down. 3 kills for the side of Misplaced Ults. Have they punched their ticket to the finals? Second Judgment comes in on Rob wins. They take the top keep, and they have 2 bell towers spawning in 3 seconds.
Lincoln Park survived that little fight with 5 HP.
Damn.
He backed away
dude.
with 5 HP.
Yep.
That was insane. They have to contest both of these shrines, and it's not going to happen. This is going to be the last.
Yep.
Going the way of Misplaced Ults.
Yep, absolutely. Game over. Misplaced Ults makes it into the finals. Congratulations to them. They will represent 1/2 of Division C. Great game, though, by Late Game, though. That was awesome. That was the match we were looking for. No shame in losing a really solid match like that.
Absolutely, and off the back of such a weird pickup with the Tyrande as well, she got such value, topping out the hero damage as well. HotS, definitely the impact player for late game though in that particular match.
Yep, indeed, that worked. That Tyrande pick was quite solid. I really liked HotS' play on Tyrande that game.
Yeah, it was insane. Well, GG's definitely. Both teams played really well in this series. Late game, though, we're going to have to see you back here next season. But tune in on September 10th. That's going to be all 3 divisions having their final September 10th. You can go ahead and visit us at Nexus Gaming Series at .wixsite.com to be able to see the scheduling for each of the matches, as well as to potentially join the series as well.
Yep, absolutely. Season 2 will start on September the 11th. So as soon as the finals finish, we will start another season. No downtime here, not even a day. So get ready for that. Cool. Well, thank you very much for joining me, Rory. And I know you have a tradition as usual.
So. Oh yes, the patented MVP.
Absolutely.
Well, I have 2 different targets that I wanna talk about here, particularly JTR, as well as HotS in that last game. I know normally the MVP goes to the winning team, and that's pretty obviously normal. But HotS was so impactful in that game that it really allowed them to turn around. And the amount of value he got off of the Ranger, he got 61 stacks by the end of the game, and that's such a huge amount of damage, especially on a team that is cooldown dependent. And so it allowed them to really sustain themselves in these games. And now I do believe he was their impact player for late game, though. However, JTR, that Dahaka play in that bot lane on Braxis, as well as his ability to engage and get really good really good engagement where he was able to single out a target on the Diablo it was really what allowed Misplaced Ults to have that upper hand for most of the series.
Indeed, I will agree on both accounts. JTR had an absolutely phenomenal game 1 and brought the pain on Diablo in game 2. Definitely was a huge part of that. But HotS' game 2 play and his kind of off supports. He played Tassadar in game 1 and Tyrande in game 2. It's a weird niche to fill, but he did it very excellently. So there are your MVPs for these matches. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for stopping by, Rory.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yep, indeed. We'll see you guys in another cast. Thanks for watching.